Please welcome to the stage Dr. Jonathan Cox, Vice President of the Center for Policy Analysis and Research at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation.
Greetings, everybody. Thank you. Again, my name is Jonathan Cox, and I am the Vice President for our Center for Policy Analysis and Research here at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, and I'm honored to welcome you all to the CBCF's 54th Annual Legislative Conference. So for more than 5 decades, CBCF has hosted this signature event each September that it really creates space to confront all the challenges and to imagine different opportunities for Black Americans and the global Black diaspora. Now, ALC has become the largest conference in the nation that is dedicated to policy issues that are relevant for Black communities, and it's become a space of insight, innovation, and action. Our theme this year, Made for This Moment, Power, Policy, and Progress, reminds us of the unique role that Black people have always played in shaping America's destiny. Despite centuries of challenges, our communities have endured and thrived, advancing equity and often carrying the mantle of democracy itself. So even as we confront uncertainty today, we remain resolute in our pursuit of justice, ensuring that our collective power fuels progress not only for ourselves, but for all marginalized communities. Now, here in the Center for Policy Analysis and Research, we continue to fulfill CBCF's mission by producing timely analysis and public education that informs the social, political, and economic conversations that are most critical to Black life. Now, this session here, it really embodies this mission. Here, you're going to hear directly from individuals working at the cutting edge of policy, practice, and community change. We are honored by their presence and thankful for their leadership in building the future that we know is possible. I also wanted to take this time to thank our session sponsor, State Farm. We appreciate State Farm not only for their sponsorship of this particular session, but their ongoing partnership with us to address issues of transportation equity. Your dedication and your support demonstrate your commitment to changing the lives of Black people across our nation. So can we give it up for our sponsor, State Farm? Thank you. And speaking of State Farm, it gives me great pleasure now to introduce to you one of our sponsors, Natalie Brunson-Wheeler. Natalie Brunson-Wheeler is a member of State Farm's Law Department in Bloomington, Illinois, where she serves as Legislative Regulatory Counsel for Louisiana, Missouri, and Mississippi. In this role, she monitors and directs State Farm's legislative and regulatory responses on insurance and business-related issues. Now, as a native of New Orleans, Louisiana, Natalie received her bachelor's degree from Indiana State University and her law degree from Vanderbilt School of Law. She is an active life member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and a life associate member of Jack and Jill America Incorporated and a member of our board of directors of the foundation. Please join me in welcoming Natalie Brunson-Wheeler to the stage.
Good afternoon. As you've heard, I'm Natalie Brunson-Wheeler. I am counsel in the law department at State Farm Mutual Automobile Insurance Company. It's an honor to join you today. We'd like to thank the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, President Nicole Austin Hillary, the leadership team and staff for creating such a powerful platform for us to engage in. On behalf of our 19,000 agents and more than 67,000 employees, State Farm is proud to continue our partnership with the foundation. Through scholarship, policy research, and our sponsorship of the communication internship program, we remain committed to developing leaders and supporting the communities we serve. We are especially proud to sponsor today's discussion, Reclaiming Belonging, Mobility in Black Community Spaces. Transportation is more than moving people from point A to point B. It is about access, connection, and belonging. barbershops, beauty salons, churches, and libraries are all places where culture is nurtured, relationships are built, and communications thrive. These third spaces are the heartbeat of Black cultural life, fostering social cohesion, well-being, and opportunity. As State Farm, we know transportation equity is essential to building safer and stronger neighborhoods. I would like to thank our panelists for leading their voices and expertise to this critical conversation. We look forward to hearing and working with you on strategies that can advance transportation equity and ensure access to all spaces. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Sally Ayuk, Transportation Equity Senior Research Fellow at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation.
So welcome again, everyone, to the transportation session. We are excited to dive into today's discussion. I'm delighted to introduce our moderator, Veronica O. Davis. She is a self-described transportation nerd and the author of Inclusive Transportation, a manifesto for repairing divided communities. She is currently the U.S. Practice Director for Planning and Environment at Akin-Relis. She is also the co-founder and former managing partner at NESPA Green LLC, and one of the co-founders of Black Women Bike. She currently lives in Baltimore, Maryland with her husband and child. Please help me in welcoming our moderator, Veronica O. Davis.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. All right, we're gonna do better than that. Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you to CBCF and State Farm for this panel. I'm very excited to introduce them. They were very clear. They didn't want me to read bios because there's so much to talk about. So their bios are in the app, but let me invite up to the stage Kenneth Bailey, founder and methodology strategy director at Design Studio for Social Intervention. He said on stage he's Kenneth, but with us he Kenny. Next, we have Kristen Jeffers, founder and editor-in-chief of The Black Urbanist. Anita Cozart, director of the DC Office of Planning. And last, and certainly not least, we have Delbert Foster, Associate Administrator, 1890 Research and Extension at South Carolina State University. So we are going to get this started. I have a very limited amount of time, and so we are going to be very efficient in how we answer these questions. So we are going to start off. They are going to give one sentence about their organization and what does belonging in Black spaces mean to you? And we're going to start with you, Kenny.
All right. Kenneth Bailey, Design Studio for Social Intervention. And we imagine and design third spaces in communities of color. And what belonging means to me, particularly in Black spaces, is giving Black communities a large repertoire of ways to both express themselves and feel calm and feel like a sense of home away from home. Because a lot of times when we think about third spaces, we're thinking about spaces that aren't work and aren't home. We're trying to create these other spaces, third spaces. And a lot of our work is about continuing to imagine what the possibility of what those spaces could be inside of cities beyond the coffee shop. So I'll stop there for now.
And hi, everybody. I'm Kristen. Pronouns are she and they. I am defying gentrification, crafting liberation with my work. And belonging for me is Not just being black, because obviously being black is beautiful, but can I be queer? Can I be feminist? Can I be my North Carolinian self here in DC? Can I just be myself? Disabled, obviously, you see here. Just, can I be myself embodied in so many of the ways that I'm embodied and in the ways that this world that we are in right now is asking us to show up, because of course they don't want us here, but I'm gonna show up anyway.
That's right. Love that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Anita Cozart. I am the director at the District of Columbia Office of Planning, and one of the ways that I really think about belonging is through the eyes of my 5- and 7-year-old sons. And what I want for them is a Washington where they were born, being able to see themselves, and not necessarily just in historical plaques, but in ways that they can actually look at a sculpture, look at a mural, look at a building and be able to see something that feels like it represents who they are, who they want to be, who they can be.
Good afternoon. I'm Delbert Foster and with South Carolina State University. It's a land-grant university. So the whole premise of our university is access, affordability, kindness, and respect. So what I see is the third place. We deal with a lot of situations where the first place, home, is not really nice. The second place, work, could be difficult. So that third place should be a place where they feel loved, respected, and honored. And that's what we try to do with our extension program at South Carolina State University.
All right, thank you. And so you're hearing the term third spaces a lot. Natalie even gave some examples. We talked about the barber shop, the beauty salon, church in some cases, or places of worship. Sometimes the cookout is a nice little temporary third space where we can just be. But one of the things about transportation is that we've designed an entire system to get people to work. So how can we actually make transportation planning work for these third spaces and get people to these third spaces? We'll start with you, Delbert.
Okay, thank you. One of the things we've done at South Carolina State is we had a very difficult time getting the participants to our programs. So what we decided to do is build and renovate spaces in the communities. So I saw a young man here, Mr. Benjamin, who's with the city of Charleston. They donated, when they did a new bridge, the old bridge was going to be torn down. So they donated land to us for $1. And we've got a grant through USDA to build a facility that houses our research and extension center in that site. Because the city of Charleston did it for $1, we're able to do now 9 across the state, including a 300-acre farm that we can train on the latest technologies to our small farms and their families. So I see it as we have to address the transportation of the lack thereof, but we also need to put some of these spaces in the communities where it's in walking distance and they feel a sense of unity, friendship, and belonging. Thank you.
Go ahead, Anita. We're going to move it down the line.
I really like that because a big part of transportation is not always taking people out of their community, right, where they have a sense of belonging, where they have ties. Sometimes it's really about bringing that resource to the community, or even better yet, reinforcing a resource that already exists there. Something that I think is reflecting on in the lead up to this panel is really thinking about just my experience of doing that, having to go somewhere. So as a teenager, I grew up just outside Cleveland, Ohio, and to get to opportunity, it wasn't always right where I was. So I had to take the bus and the train. And what I noticed along the way was that there were certain parts of where I would travel through on the bus where the recreation centers looked beautiful. The fire stations were in good shape. The sidewalks were all complete. There were crosswalks, and then I'd keep going. And all of that was different. And it made me wonder, okay, why is the sidewalk crumbling in front of my dance studio or my church? Like, why does it not look the way it does in front of my school? Who makes these decisions? and who let those people make those decisions, right? And so a big part of, thinking about transportation planning is who's making those decisions and who's not at the table to make those decisions. So for me, that's been a big part of why I've even focused in this area, is to bring a different lens for how we do transportation planning and planning in general, to bring resources to people, but then two, to make sure lived experiences of those who are not in the decision-making seat or even at the conversation about it, bringing them to that, and really understanding as planning practitioners, that's our obligation. And it's not just something you check off because you go to your association's conference and you say you got to do it, but it should be a part of who you are and how you practice.
And I started blogging 15 years ago because I was just a young person who was fascinated. And I solve a lot of my problems by writing things. And I was like, why not have these resources? As I mentioned before, and you see in the bio, I'm from Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm very proud of it. And all I wanted was for us to have resources. At the time, we did not have Sunday buses. At the time, buses aren't 24 hours. And even here living in DC now, we're just getting to the point where we have 24-hour transit, but we live 24-hour lives. So many of us are still the ones, we are still the ones on the third shift. And it's not just the third shift, the club let out. We love to talk, hey, come on, rather you get on the bus and take care of yourself than a tragedy happen because you're trying to drive. But yet we are out here and that is our only option. And I'm not afraid to be the person to say, hey, let's figure out, and of course that's where that MPA comes from, figure out how to write that ordinance, find that funding to make sure that if it's obvious they can't pay, we're not criminalizing that. Provide the service. We love to recruit companies, we love to have them make places and make third spaces, make them pay for us to get where we need to go. But of course, once again, I'm not afraid to bring that equity and that justice conversation back. We need to keep doing that, and that's why we're here today.
And for me, I would say tying transportation and third spaces into a bundle of relational infrastructure. And by that, I mean seeing both the making of third spaces that community make and the making of new third spaces that we might imagine and design, and the making of transportation all as one bundle of increasing the quality of life for Black people in cities.
Absolutely. So we've heard a lot about who's at the table and who's making the decisions. So Anita, you sit in a decision maker seat, and I've known you for a long time. I know your background in terms of policy link and having that transportation and equity. So how do you show up as someone now who gets to make the decision and has influence over others like the mayor and the council members?
This is a good question. For me, and I have to say, my time at Policy Link was really pivotal because neither in my high school education or my college education or even my graduate school education did I really understand kind of how decisions are made, who you can influence, how that ecosystem works together, and where you have a voice, right? And so now a key part of that is, people think I can make a certain decision. There are a handful, not a handful, there are probably a dozen decisions that I get to make, and there's dozens more that I do not, many that I influence. For me, it's about really understanding, and this is especially important when we're talking with each other, to understand, I understand you may have more influence over said decision by going directly to the mayor or going to protest outside a council member's house than I do. And let's all be clear about that, because we live in the same community, we want progress, and If that means, you need to say, well, I already talked to Anita, and she said, I need to come talk to you about this because she's not the ultimate decision maker. That is an important part of my own integrity. But again, that's about bringing people to the decision-making table and being clear, not saying, oh, I can influence this, when I know good and well I don't have influence over that. And I think that's a really important part. And it takes humility, and it takes a full understanding of what you do have agency and authority over, and a willingness to tell people the truth about what you can influence. And also, if I disagree, and I think that this is the right policy direction, and we come to a disagreement, I know what your position is. I know what my position is. We'll probably be half right, half wrong, And to be able to, part of that, being able to do that is to have relationship, right? And that's another thing that the advocacy world taught me, is how to be in relationship, develop relationships so that when you do have that conflict, you're able to weather it because you understand what each of your roles are, and you are committed to staying in relationship with that organization, person, et cetera.
So for Kristen and Kenneth, you guys are coming both from that creative space, right? And we're talking about influence. How can we start telling stories? How can we start tying this all so that people can understand, right, their voice and how they can influence transportation planning?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Many of us, at least I'll speak for myself, because I'm learning that as much as my Black story is universal in some ways, there's also so many Black stories. And as we're telling our Black stories, also talking about specific places, specific spaces, that my uncles just were always telling me about various things going on. My dad was doing that. That's so much of my origin story. And now I want everybody, especially in this moment when books are being banned and words are being silenced, all of those things, to continue to talk about where these things are. I will give one quick example. My grandmother told me about how back in the 40s, back in rural Alamance County, which is not as rural anymore in North Carolina, they had a bus that ran down the state highways, and it came and picked them up. Now, by the time I came along in the 80s and 90s, that bus was gone. So that, to me, is where, even where it is, and it don't even have to be on social media. It probably should be on social media, because we need positivity on social media. We need truth on social media. But even if it's, I'm about to self-publish a book, even if it's collecting all those stories, recording everybody, and listening to our elders and our young people, and everybody in the middle when they're telling these stories and they're making these reflections, whether it's about being on the school bus, or especially when it's about being on the side of the road, left behind on the bus, and they need that help to get where they need to go. And that restoration of dignity.
Ask the question again.
I was saying, as the creatives, right, you all are the creatives here, how do we help tell our story? And how do we help people know to tell their story in order to influence the transportation planning decision makers?
How we do it at the Design Studio for Social Intervention is we create the conditions for people to design. And we create the conditions for people to actually, from neighborhoods, to feel like they have agency and authority, not just over their communities, but over the city, to have a view of the entire city as an ecology, and to see their neighborhoods as part of an ecosystem, and to see the transportation system and all the other systems as connecting back to the things that they care about in their neighborhood. And we give little mini grants for communities to come and actually learn how to design and then test those designs. And in that, what we then ask communities to do, or neighbors to do, is to take their creativity and their imagination and then propose to the city what they want the city to be, versus waiting for the city to propose to communities what they want the city to be. So we're trying to invert the authority over space by having the authority come from the ground versus the authority just coming from the top. And so far, so good. Like, give us another 4 or 5 years. We're only 20 years old.
I love that. And what I will say is, under the previous administration, we did have a lot of grants that were available for nonprofits to do that type of planning and to get in the community and reconnecting communities. And with that, Delbert, so HBCUs are key places, right? They're places of educational institutions, but they're also our third spaces in a place. Even if you didn't go to that HBCU, there's something about it that feels familiar. So what's the role of HBCUs in this world, in this transportation ecosystem? I know you talked a little bit earlier about what 1890 is doing to create that connection by going out into the community, but what does that look like and how can we replicate that in other places?
Okay, first, the 1890s are 19 universities in 18 states. But in every state, we have a land-grant university. Cornell is one. So, and we have the 1994s, what are land-grant Native Americans. So these are service providers. The education I'm talking about is not formal education, it's informal. And what I like about what Anita and the group is saying, we train our leaders in parliamentary procedures, our community leaders, because the frustration is not getting what you want, is how to get what you want. You serve on city council, you serve on a school board, you serve on a planning board, but if Anita or Delbert, who are state and county employees, we can't do what you can do as a community person, like the two of you can do. But we train you in the manner in which you can have it get done for you. So when I see the land-grant university or HBCUs, we have to take all of the research and the knowledge from the tower to the people. I don't care what your goal is. Everything we really need to know, we really did learn in kindergarten. and some of us did in Sunday school. It's not rocket science. How to treat people, what to do. So we don't need the great university to come save us. But we do need the research that is housed at the university to come assist us. And I'll end with what my boss, who's passed, would always tell me. The person that developed the polio vaccine, the researcher, if he and that group had stayed in the lab, we would never eradicated polio. And I'll end with that.
That's a good ending. So we're going to start here with you, Kenneth. So we have a beautiful sea of faces out there, and they all represent different communities. And I know they're going to get their phones out to take some notes or some pen and paper. What is one action that the people in here can take to improve transportation in their community?
I think reimagine the entire city and see yourself as having agency over saying what the entire place could be and how the relationship between creating spaces of belonging and transportation should connect. Think of yourselves as having agency over the entire ecology of cities versus just thinking of yourselves as having agency over your block or your neighborhood. We all need to think of these cities as belonging to us.
Okay, thank you. Kristen, what's one action that everyone in this room can take? And I know they're taking notes, mental notes.
I would say, think about what they did in Montgomery to replicate what was needed to get people where they needed to go in times of deep repression. It's a shame that we're back here, but we are here. So think about in your community, what is that radical action that is needed to restore connectivity? What, through transportation, through housing, the radical actions, the right actions, the ones that deep down in your core, especially those of us who are of faith, and not to say, and those who have a sense of community and want to do right by people, that one action. So just think about it, journal about it. I love saying journal about it. That's my MO these days.
I really like that because I love that example because it's both about justice and it's about the impact of the collective. Because there was not just a social impact of the collective, there was an economic impact of the collective. Because a big part of why it ceased was the economy of Montgomery and how it was impacted by that civil rights action. So I want to piggyback on something Kenneth said. Just last week, our team had a little mini retreat, and one of the activities we did is we took a piece of paper. In the middle of the paper, we wrote down the things that we're really good at. Each of us are really good at. We could do them in our sleep. We could do them with no sleep. Then we said, write the things down in the corners of the paper that feel like a stretch, feel like there's no way you could do them, not possible. There's a huge, you can think of 10 barriers to doing it before you can think of one pathway to do it. Write it down in the corners, and then write down, and then think about those things as, even though they're a stretch, just flip the paper and imagine if you could do them. Just flip the paper over. So I love what you're saying. The whole city. So think about those things, those transportation barriers that exist in your community, and decide they're not a stretch to fix them. Just decide that and map your way. And then the other thing we did is we shared the map with our neighbor to figure out what could we do together, collectively.
I'll repeat, collaborate, do your research, and leave your egos outside of the room. Regardless of the degrees, how many times, how many families, we have to get to the bottom issue that Kenneth said, and I like what the group is saying. Your block is not the only block we pay taxes for. You pay taxes for the city, the county, and the state. Claim it, claim it, claim it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will say hot topic. I don't know if everyone is aware of what happened at Tennessee State University the other day, where people stepped on the campus uninvited, provoking conversation. So it was it was fearless debate, and it said something like all illegal immigrants should be deported and DEI is useless or something like that. But it was people coming into our third spaces in order to incite and provoke. So in the space of where we are now, because I know a lot of us, we were talking earlier, we're holding some heavy things, right? As a community, as a people. How can we protect our third spaces? How can we protect ourselves as we have to continue to move and live through community? So I'm going to start with you, Kristen.
So one of the things I've been doing as of late, and shameless plug, is in first half of my new book coming out, is just focusing on what I'm bringing to the table. Just like Anita just said, like thinking about the things I do well, thinking about who I really am. One of the things I did at my land-grant institution, NC State University, even though we were a PWI, our people, our Black leaders made sure we know who we were in these spaces that may not want us to be there, and who we are and what's special and what makes it tick. Like, just remember, once again, another cliche, another movie, remembering who we are and holding into that and saying, okay, this is who we are. And yes, we like to share, but you clearly don't want to share. If you don't want to come here to share, if you just want to come here and just be a blowhard, push down, or worse, this is not your space, right, and it's time to go. Go somewhere else, but not here.
Anita?
Sure. So as you can imagine, some of you live and work in Washington, D.C., and so you know kind of what we're facing. And, I think in some ways the whole tension of, yes, we are a welcoming place, and we have sets of values, right? All the more important push for all of you, if you haven't talked to your legislators about how DC should have statehood, please go back and do that. Thank you very much. Because for us, being able to live out our values, and for the 700,000 people who live here, vote here, pay taxes here, have a point of view, have sets of people who are accountable, know they're accountable to us, and know we'll hold them accountable. There are apparently others, dozens of others, who don't want to be accountable to us necessarily, and also want to enjoy the way our values have played out in our city, our positive values that have led to where we are as a place, as a beautiful, wonderful, welcoming, inclusive place. And so what I would say is kind of to echo what Kristen said, is that really sticking, these are our values, this is what it means, and even breaking those values down, and saying that we think that it is really important that those of us who live here and are invested here are able to carry out our values and live out those values freely, and that is completely connected to who we are as the United States. And so really it gets back to what you all were talking about related to storytelling and being clear about that.
Thank you. Delbert?
I'll just say that it's our space. We invite you into our space. There's certain conditions for which you can stay in our space. And we just made that clear. We're not being disrespectful. We're not being disobedient. But it's like your parents taught you when your neighbors come over. There's certain things you do within that yard or that house that your parents allow. So you have to transfer that to your friends, or they're no longer allowed to come over. So I say, as long as you follow the rules, because we are open people, we allow everyone to come in. That's not reciprocated a lot, but that's just the nature of our people. But you cannot come in and just run shot over our rules and regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Just in time, Kenneth. Now you got the new fresh microphone.
I love it. I love it. And I think we have to be willing to enforce our boundaries.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
He's dropping the mic on that one.
That's it. Just throw it.
I love it. I love it. So I will say, so I'm an engineer, and engineer.
forgive you.
It's okay. I'm a planner too, you know. But I will say the engineering profession has done a lot of damage to our communities, and that is very documented, very well documented. One of the things, Kristen says shameless plug. So shameless plug, I am the author of Inclusive Transportation, a manifesto for repairing divided communities. And one of the stories that I share in there is my mother's childhood home was taken to build I-10 through Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So for many of our communities, we are still dealing with, our existing condition is 1950, 1960, before that road came in. And we have people alive today that can say, well, I remember when, right? My mother, she's mostly in her right mind, but she is still alive, and she remembers what her community was. So particularly as we talk about designing, how do we honor, right, what has happened to us, but then also think about the future? How do we co-design with our communities to think about what's next for us while acknowledging the harm that was done from infrastructure?
One of the things so Mindy Fully Love and our organization, we work a lot together. We're friends, we're like urbanist friends. And one of the things I've been saying is we have to sort of package a sort of a Black hemispheric spatial justice project, where we look at all the ways in which we as a hemispheric people have sort of dealt with spatial injustice and racial injustice, and at least start to imagine a way forward from there that isn't sort of bound by political inhibitions as a project to even start to see what's possible. And one of the things we like to do is sort of work with artists and work with community members and work with organizers and policy folk to figure out these sort of big visions. And I feel like why not? Like, what would it look like if we actually thought with Sao Paulo, thought with Trinidad, thought with the black people in Colombia, thought with the black people in Canada? Because some of these problems were also faced in with the black community in Vancouver. Like, what would it look like if we had a hemispheric conference around black spatial injustice? Like, what would that mean? What would it do? Like, let's just go for it.
Okay, CBC Foundation, we look forward to that conference being convened. Delbert, if you can answer that question.
I'm saying the more we participate in the decision-making process, the better it will be. And when you have professionals, engineers that look like you, architects that look like you, planners that look like us, we don't need to put them on the chopping block, but we need information. And then at the university, we like to bring in those professionals because it's important when you're discussing issues. Just because you have the degree doesn't mean you know the issue. But the practical person who's doing the work, plus the degree, could give you some insight with how you address legislators, city council folk, and then you can get to the issue of why this community continues to be disgraced, disrespected. But you can't do that yelling and screaming from the pulpit. Only, you need that to force them to speak to people in the room. But we need to be in the room, at the table, decision makers.
Anita?
I mean, I think a big part of what I think has changed, I've observed changing in planning practice. So if you think about whether it's in the non-government sector or government sector, private sector, is really incorporating that history. And that's a starting place, and there's an invitation to fill in the parts of the history that haven't been told or captured, and that is and making that the starting place rather than only sets of maps that we've put together and that have the certain data points that we've picked out. That map needs to stand alongside this history and where we want to take the history, the past, where we want to take the present of the existing conditions and make sure we have through lines and connections to the future, and connections and thinking about how the history can help us solve the challenges that we have today, like asking that explicit question rather than bypassing and just saying, oh, that was part of the history. We don't need to think about it. That happened. We don't need to think about it. Yes, we absolutely need to think about it today and figure out how it rolls in. So I've been pleased to see that more as part of planning practice.
All right, Kristen?
And I speak a lot about like starting with ourselves, because oftentimes, especially many of you are going to go back to your communities and you're going to be the only ones, or at least you think you're the only ones.
Right, you're not.
And yeah, you're not the only ones, but just girding yourself. Like for me, I wrote this, so my book's called The Defined Gentrification Playbook. I pick different things out at different points in time that I need to thrive. But the first 3 things are the things I know I can do just sitting in the bed when I'm having a bad day. It's having faith, whatever faith means to you. It's creating and cultivating. Yes, I made this. And that brings me joy, and that's an ancestral craft. And thinking about that, something that I've doing right now is something we've been doing over and over again, and it prevails. And then, yes, the basics, taking care of yourself, demanding that the third space of these clinics and hospitals give us the right diagnoses, demand that, depending on whatever our size of our bodies are, we take up that space. We don't have to pay for that second seat on the plane. Those taking up that space and knowing that those are given. And then remembering, because of course it's usually us that's doing the work. We're here because many of us are doing the work. But demanding that, hey, community, I need the care from you. Hey, community, I need your help with access. I need your help with infrastructure. And reciting that, because so many of us love our affirmations. So many of us love our verses. And even though this is supposed to be a transformation conversation, but it starts up here, thinking about the vision that we have for our communities. Because one thing I like to tell my wife is that, somebody imagined slavery. Somebody imagined the redlining maps, the freeways cutting through our neighborhoods. They're still imagining that we're the ones that need the data centers right now, even though it's drinking up our water and burning up our electricity. And somebody is imagining that we're not supposed to be here, but we are recountering that imagination. We are imagining and we are putting ourselves back in here.
All right. Ooh. And on that note, so we are about to wrap up, but we're going to start with you, Delbert, and work our way down. So on that theme of reimagining, what does that look like for you, Delbert? What does a reimagined transportation network look like for you?
It looks like something that you see will benefit you and your community, whatever that looks like to you. Reimagine that you have an opportunity to impact and demand the change that you and your community decide you all need. Thank you.
Thank you. Anita, this is your final word, too, for everybody.
Really appreciate this conversation. I think for me, it is about choice. It is about opportunity. It is about affordability, and it is about connecting people to realize their dreams.
All right, Kristen.
And for me, if you're going to provide that public service, remember that it is a public service. And find the people who can actually pay for it, not the most burdensome to be paying for it. I'm absolutely here. Free fares, clean facilities, and moving that money back around. That's the one thing I just want to leave with us. And once again, to the CBC Foundation, continuing to convene these types of panels where we are talking about these issues and encouraging people and not being afraid to name what we are facing.
That's right. Absolutely. All right, Kenneth?
Yeah, I was thinking seeing transportation as a public good. So this idea of free for everyone, and seeing it directly tied to creating multiple destinations by which people, when they wake up in the morning, want to get out of bed and leave their house and go somewhere. Yes. So, and seeing transportation as the part of the ecosystems that help people get out and have lively lives in cities.
Absolutely. So my friend Calvin was making fun of me. He's like, "You're just going to moderate and not talk?" Of course not. So I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to take moderator's privilege since we're about to wrap up. You know, for me, when I think about my vision of transportation future, to me, it's a 10-year-old, regardless of their zip code, regardless of their gender identity, regardless of what their abilities are, regardless of that, can move through a space independently, that they are able to access, recreation, that they're able to go to the corner store, and they're able to be just joyful and be themselves. That, to me, is what I look at as my North Star as I think about decision making, as I think about engineering, as I think about planning. I really want to thank all of you all for sticking with us through this conversation. This is a dynamic panel. We've got a couple amens out here. We're going to have some joy. It is a lot happening, but I really want to thank CBCF for convening this. We look forward to our Western Hemisphere convening. Yes. We're going to bring our Canadian brother and sister and our Caribbean brother and sister. We're going to collect them from Latin America. We'll get some Spanish translators. But it really has been a fantastic conversation. I hope that you all have a fantastic rest of this ALC conference, that you take this time to network, that you take this time to find some joy. This is a third space. ALC is a third space. And so I hope during this weekend that you find some joy and that you go back to your communities ready to work, because that's what we do. Thank you so much.